So I'm a marine conservation biologist. What does that mean? I do science and I use science to better inform conservation and management policy for threatened shark species. Sometimes that means I'm out on the boat tagging sharks and taking blood samples from sharks and measuring sharks. Sometimes it means I'm talking to you, members of the public, through the news or through talks at museums like this. A lot of times it means I dress up like an idiot and talk to school groups.
So first of all, what are sharks? Sharks are fish. That's a question that I get a lot. There are some people that think they're marine mammals like dolphins or whales. They're not. There's some people that think they're their own separate thing. They're not. They are fish. Just like a goldfish, just like a tuna, just like a bass if you go fishing. But there's one important difference between sharks and the other sharks, skates, rays, and chimeras are all the shark relatives, and the other groups of fishes. And the main difference is what their skeleton is made out of. I want everyone watching at home to take your arm out in front of you, pick a point about halfway between your wrist and your elbow, and try to bend your arm there. Hopefully you can't. Don't try too hard. Our hospitals are overwhelmed as it is. But hopefully you can't. That's bone. That is not flexible, and it's what our entire skeletons are made out of. Now, we're supposed to be discouraging people from touching their faces, but if you've washed your hands recently, crinkle your ears. That's flexible. That is cartilage. That is what sharks' entire bodies are made out of. So it's lighter than bone, it's more flexible than bone, it's less dense than bone, which helps with the animals who need to move through the water. And it also heals faster than bone. So sharks' entire bodies are made out of cartilage. The same is true of the shark relatives, the skates, the rays, and chimeras. Another cool thing that sharks and their relatives have that most other animals don't have is their senses. They have the same five senses that we do. They can see, they can smell, they can taste, they can hear, they can touch, but they also have this whole other sense, which is the ability to sense electric fields and magnetic fields in their environment. The big fancy science word for that is called the ampullae of Lorenzini, but it's the ability to sense electric fields. And what that means is if there is a prey animal that is hiding under the sand and you can't see it and you can't hear it and you can't smell it, sharks still know it's there because they can sense the electric field given off it by its body.
So I'm going to share some lessons for you told from the perspective of sharks. First lesson is everything happens for a reason, and sometimes that reason is you make bad decisions. I want to talk a little bit about shark bites here. When most people hear about sharks, and yeah, I'm just going to leave that looping because it cracks me up every time I see it. When most people hear about sharks, they hear about them in the context of sharks biting people, which does happen, but it's very, very, very rare. If you've ever been in the ocean, there was a shark near you and it knew you were there and it wasn't bothering you for the most part. Hundreds of millions of humans go in the ocean every year. 40 to 70 are bitten, most of which are very, very minor bites, and maybe a handful are killed. Some things that are greater sources of mortality than sharks include not paying attention while taking a selfie and falling off a cliff. That kills more people than sharks every year. Flower pots falling from apartment balconies onto the street below kill more people every year than sharks do. Vending machines, those things are death traps and kill a lot more people than sharks do every year. So what's happening in this picture is a scuba diver that is perhaps being insufficiently careful around a wild animal. To put it mildly, you don't see people try to give hugs and kisses to grizzly bears when they go on hikes.
But if you're ever in a situation where there's a wild animal around you and you don't understand how it's behaving, it's not a bad idea to get out of the way. But there are people who are just absolutely terrified of going in the ocean because sharks are there. The sharks aren't going to bother you for the most part. Have I had any dangerous encounters with sharks? No, I haven't. But I tell you what, I did the first time I ever took my dad to tag sharks with me. We had to cut the trip short because I had to be rushed to the emergency room. But it wasn't because of sharks. It was because I got careless around our fishing gear and ended up putting this giant fishing hook through my hand. Yes, I still have it in a medical waste jar on my desk to remind myself not to get cocky.
So great whites are the most famous shark species. On the last Shark Week 2019, I think 2/3 of the specials were partially or entirely about great whites. But great whites are cool. I like them just fine. But there's a lot of different species of sharks out there. They come in just about every shape and size and color and behavior that you can imagine. In fact, according to the latest edition of Sharks of the World, which is a reference guide, there are 550 known species of sharks, and there is a new species discovered every 2 weeks. So there's a lot left to discover still in the ocean. And I have some of my favorite weirdos highlighted here. In the upper left, you see a thresher shark. Look how big their tail is. It's as big as the rest of their body combined. I have more about thresher sharks coming up later. The top center, that's a frilled shark. Their body's almost the same shape and dimensions as that of a snake. The bottom left is a megamouth shark. They are a deep sea species that was discovered when a U.S. Navy vessel accidentally hit one with their anchor in the 1970s. Otherwise, it would have been another 10 or 15 years before people discovered one. They have glow-in-the-dark gums, and they live in the deep sea where it's so dark that light never reaches. And fish see the light and swim towards it, and they swim right into the megamouth's mouth. One of the sharks that I've been talking about a lot recently is Greenland sharks. I don't have a photo of one here, but they're a really cool species. They live under Arctic ice, and they are the longest lived animal in the world. They can live to be over 400 years old, and they eat polar bears and reindeer.
There are also basking sharks. I actually have a model of one of these. My wife calls these toys. I call them educational models. And like they are the second largest fish in the ocean. We're talking they can get this about the size of a school bus. It's a big fish. So, but they are really, really impressive animals. I've never gotten a chance to see one. I was actually at a conference in Scotland a few years ago, and we hired a Basking Shark Scotland, an eco-tour company, to take us out looking for basking sharks, and we didn't see any, even though we were there the whole day. And the next day, they saw like 20.
So here's my thresher shark again. I just love an excuse to throw in this meme because thresher sharks are a really, really tough, awesome species of shark. They have that giant tail. You can see in the GIF there that they use it as a whip to stun prey. It makes a shockwave in the water, and then they can just munch on the prey. But their faces are so adorably derpy. I just love them. But also, it's important to take care of things on your own. What you're seeing here is a lemon shark being born. As soon as that shark is born, it has to be able to swim on its own and fend for itself, find its own food, and get away from its mother. Sharks have no parental care at all. Unless you define not eating the babies immediately as parental care, which some of you who have been trapped with your kids for a month at this point may define it that way. This is one of my favorite interactions. This is actually a shark eating another shark. But the large animal that you're seeing on the eat the smaller one is an angel shark. They can lie flat on the sand, even buried under the sand, for days until something swims so close that they can open their mouth and it makes a suction and just sucks things right in. That uses a lot less energy than what the great white shark does, chasing the seals and launching itself out of the water. It's important to be yourself. Don't let if you have someone if you have someone who tells you no that you shouldn't wear a giant foam rubber shark costume to a campus party, get rid of them. You don't need that kind of negativity in your life. But while being yourself, it's important to find some like-minded people. This is a picture with my PhD lab. You can see there are actually several people who had the same idea to wear shark costumes for that same campus party. I have found my people. And the best advice I can give is do what you love and love what you do. This is a photo of 6-year-old me playing with a toy shark. I have loved sharks as long as my family can remember, despite growing up in Pittsburgh, pretty far from the ocean. My parents have always been very supportive of this crazy dream of mine, though I think they always thought I would grow out of it. But I am now living my childhood dream, and one of my favorite parts of it is getting to talk to people about it, just like you.
But for now, I'll finish talking about shark conservation. So sharks are a fascinating and misunderstood group of animals that are important to a healthy functioning ecosystem, but unfortunately, they're also in big trouble. And they're in big trouble because of humans. Humans are killing too many sharks. We're doing this for fishing. Many species of sharks are caught accidentally by fishermen. That's called bycatch. But some are also caught on purpose by people trying to sell the shark's meat or sell the shark's fins. Sharks are also really, really important for a healthy functioning food chain, a food web, a healthy functioning ocean ecosystem. And the ocean is an ecosystem that tens of millions of humans depend on for food and for jobs and for recreation. So it's really important that we have healthy ocean ecosystems. Climate change is a threat to the ocean in general, and it's a threat to many marine species. It's not anywhere near as big a threat to sharks as overfishing is. Plastic pollution in the ocean is a big threat to many marine species, especially marine mammals and especially sea turtles. But it's not that big of a threat to sharks. Humans killing too many sharks is the biggest threat facing sharks, and the best thing we can do about that is for you to eat sustainable seafood and not eat unsustainable seafood. Thanks, everyone, and stay safe.